Get out of safety mode. I joined soccer when I was 8 years old, which now seems young, but at the time, it was like it took forever for me to actually be able to join the soccer team. You see, in the school I went to, all the cool kids played soccer, and they had already been playing soccer since they were six. So, yeah, all of the cool kids had already been playing soccer since they were six, and there was nothing I was more concerned with at the time than being cool. That was my goal. I needed to be cool. I wanted to be one of the popular kids. And so clearly, I needed to play soccer since that's what all the cool kids were doing. And so my parents consented to let me sign up for soccer finally at 8 years old. And I got on the phone with the league, and the guy says, "Okay, well, in this suburb where you go to school, there's two soccer teams. There's the Brown Deer Blast, and there's the Brown Deer Leopards. So which team do you want to be on?" And I knew at this moment at 8 years old, this was the decision that was going to change my entire life. You see, if I chose the right team, then I would be on the team with all the cool kids, all the popular kids. They were not only good at soccer, but they were good at everything. All the girls liked them. It would cement me as having friends that were of social status and high value. I would be invited to all the sleepovers. We would be friends straight into high school, maybe into college. Who knows how long these partnerships that we would forge would be bonded for the rest of my life if I just chose the right team. But if I chose the wrong team, I could end up on the team with a bunch of losers, the dorks, the nerds, the outcasts. The problem is, I couldn't remember what the name of the team was that all the popular kids were on. So I'm sitting there thinking to myself, oh man, this is the moment that's going to change my entire life. I need to figure out which team I'm going to be on. Is it going to be the Blast or the Leopards? And the guy sitting on the phone, which team do you want to be on? He's leaving it up to me. Like I get to choose. This could be the best or the worst moment of my life. And so I make a guess and I say, I think Blast sounds too obvious, like you're trying to be cool. The cool kids are probably on the Leopards. So I chose the Leopards. I showed up to the first day of practice and it was all the dorks. That's right. I chose the wrong team. I chose a team with all the social outcasts, the nerds, the losers. And I don't mean losers like in a derogatory way. I mean like they would lose the games. Like we would literally lose all of our games. We were a terrible soccer team because all the talent, the brain drain was on the other team. The Blast was the team that I actually wanted to be on, but it was too late. I had made my choice and I was stuck with it. And yes, it did change things for me, and I did end up being friends with the dorks and the nerds, and it did probably affect my popularity, but I was able to turn that around once I got to high school. But that's another story. This story centers around one day when I was up against my arch nemesis. He didn't know he was my nemesis. We're going to call him Brian Webb. And he was so talented. He was the best soccer player in our school. He was the best at like every sport, and all the girls liked him. That's why he was my nemesis because I couldn't figure out how he was so good at everything and how everything was just effortless. He was popular. He was even in the gifted and talented program, and I wasn't. And I couldn't understand how is he in the gifted and talented? I'm not in the gifted and talented. This kid was just under my skin. And here we are playing a soccer game against his team, the Blast, and we're the Leopards slash losers. And guess what we're doing? Losing? Yeah, they're killing us. Now, I'm a really good defender, and that was the position that I played. And now I got Brian Webb dribbling the ball at me, and he's coming. And this is my moment. I got to stop this guy. Okay. Now, I was a good defender, and typically I could stop someone from dribbling around me. So Brian Webb, he's coming at me. He's super good. And he's coming at me. Now all I got to do, the goal here, if you don't know soccer, I got to stop this guy from dribbling around me and making a goal. Okay, I'm the defender. I'm the last guy before the goalie to stop this guy from scoring. And Brian Webb approaches and boop, he pulls a move I've never seen before, dribbles around me very easily and scores a goal. We're losing now 5-0. It was devastating, humiliating, infuriating. I'd never even seen this move before. At level one of soccer, you play with the insides of your feet. That's how you play. You kick the ball with the inside. The guy kicked the ball with the outside of his foot. I was 8 years old. I had never seen this move before. And he just dribbled around me like it was nothing. Made a fool of me in front of my parents who were on the sidelines watching. I got in the car that day. I told my parents, I quit. I never want to play soccer again. Why did I do that? Maybe because I didn't want to get hurt again. Maybe because I felt like I could never be as good as I wanted to be. Or maybe by quitting, I could protect myself. Now, it's at this point in the story, if you know me well, you know that I've started lying. That's right. There is no way I'm quitting because something didn't go my way, because this guy made a fool of me and humiliated me. It's just the opposite. I felt determined to figure out what in the world that move was, to master it so that I could do it and add that to my lexicon so that I could do it to other people and I would never let someone else dribble around me like that again. I didn't quit. At 8 years old, I knew you don't stop when it doesn't go your way. You learn, use it as an opportunity to learn because now I was about to be better than ever. But why is it that some people who are much older than I was at 8 years old quit when it doesn't go their way, when they fail, when they get embarrassed and their opponent dribbles around them? Why do they give up and just say, I'm not doing that anymore? They do that with relationships, they do that with business, they do that with school. In fact, this becomes a way that they live their life. And we'll call this safety mode. They get stuck into safety mode because they're thinking, I just got hurt. I don't want to get hurt again. I just got embarrassed. I don't want to get embarrassed again. I just got made a fool of. I'm not going to let anyone make a fool out of me. And now they live their life trying to keep someone from making a fool out of them by just not participating. They say, I give up on men or I give up on relationships. Well, that doesn't sound like living. That sounds like just avoiding pain. This affects their ability to find a job, to start a business. They don't want to mess up. They don't want to get hurt. They just want to keep their head down and stay safe. They're stuck in safety mode. They've now allowed their whole entire life to be defined by their trauma. It's understandable when you've been through trauma, heartbreak, pain, failure. Safety feels like the escape, feels like the thing that you got to rely on. For some, it's like a drug, it's like addictive. But the truth is, you cannot grow and stay safe at the same time. There's an inverse relationship between safety and success. So, although you might be thinking, well, the most successful I can be is safe, right? Wrong. Wrong. Your efforts to keep yourself safe will pull you away from success. They will pull you away from growth, from achievement. Your efforts to keep yourself safe will cause you to limit yourself too much, too fast. You're in safety mode. Safety mode is that internal programming that tells you, don't speak up because you might be judged. Don't love too deeply because you might get abandoned. Don't trust someone of the opposite gender because you might get played. Don't try something new because you might fail. That's safety mode. Shows up as perfectionism, procrastination, people pleasing. Again, we understand that safety mode feels like it protected you when you needed it most, but it's not designed for life. It's not designed for building a future. It's a bunker, not a home. You cannot live there forever. Eventually, that safety mode stops being safe and starts becoming a cage. How so? Well, the reality, if you give up on progressing, is that you're actually going to stagnate your life and never see what your potential could have been. Like if I gave up on soccer right then and there, then I wouldn't have been able to play in high school, which I did. I played in middle school and then I played in high school, which then affects the potential relationships and whatever the benefits are going to be with that moving forward. You can't ever see what your potential is going to be. In fact, even after high school, I used soccer as a way of making friends and staying in shape. But I would have never known if I would have just given up. If you give up in business when your business doesn't go right or you have a failure or setback, you'll never achieve all of the reasons why you got into business in the first place. Your time freedom, right? The financial, no ceiling financially, all the things that you wanted. Now you'll never see those things. And when you do this with the relationships, you're not making yourself more safe from getting hurt. You're setting yourself up to potentially get hurt even worse by depriving yourself, staying away from, staying away from, staying away from the relationship, staying away from the relationships, depriving yourself, depriving yourself. What happens is you start to become desperate for connection, desperate for interaction, desperate to be loved by someone, but you're so afraid. And so guess who's gonna pounce on the opportunity while you're alone, isolated, and desperate? Guess who's gonna navigate around your walls and plow through your boundaries? Narcissists, predators. Those are the ones. All the healthy people are going to say, oh, doesn't look like she's ready. So we're just going to leave her alone. And all the people with bad intentions are the ones that you're attracting when you're staying in safety mode. You're attracting the predators when you stay in safety mode. You're not showing yourself to be strong, to be vibrant, to be courageous. Risk is required for growth. So if you felt like oh, I'm in a rut, probably because you're in safety mode, risk is required for success. It can be confusing because risk is adverse with safety, right? It feels a little bit like, well, if I take risks, then I'm not going to be safe. So obviously, I don't want to take risks anymore. Risks are a requirement for growth, for life. And ultimately, you're really not more safe when you're just in safety mode. Imagine if you just stayed in the house all the time. That would seem like the safest thing to do. But then, how are you going to get groceries? How are you going to make money? You have to leave the house, or someone's got to leave the house and take the risk of bringing home groceries. And so there's a risk involved in getting out of your house, walking to that store, getting those groceries. But why isn't that unwise? Because it's a calculated risk. You need food in order to survive and to thrive. So you have to take the risk. So you understand in life, you're actually taking calculated risks. In life, you're taking calculated risks that are required for growth. This is the way we strike the balance. It doesn't mean we become abnormally risky, like taking unnecessary risks, like, oh, let me go put myself in dangerous situations where there wouldn't be a commensurate payoff. That's not a calculated risk. You have not sat down and done the math, so to speak, on that risk. A calculated risk means you sit down, pause, meditate, and ask yourself, could it be worth the risk? And then you'll realize that loving someone means risking heartbreak, but it could be worth the risk. Starting a business means risking failure, but it could be worth the risk. Speaking up and speaking your truth means risking rejection, but it could be worth the risk. There are certain things that are worth the risk when you consciously reason on them. But when you're just living in safety mode, I gotta keep myself safe. You don't consciously reason and realize that what you're doing is throwing away good opportunities in an effort to keep yourself safe. One woman wrote on Reddit, she said, my boyfriend, I told him I want to break up because I don't trust men right now. And then he wrote back, I'm one of the most trustworthy guys, and I'm not like other guys. And you're probably going to end up getting your heart broken if you go with someone else. And then she writes, this really sounds like this guy's a narcissist. What do you guys think? And then everyone in the comments was like, yeah, he sounds like a narcissist. That's a red flag. Get away from this guy. We're completely missing her maladaptive, risk averse, cognitive distorted way of reasoning and sabotaging her relationship. Now, I don't know whether this guy is a narcissist, but I know that so far she hasn't provided an actual legitimate basis on which she needs to end this relationship. That apparently she's already started. So she said, I need to end the relationship because I just don't trust men right now. Men? What does that have to do? What? I just don't trust men? How you're in a relationship with a man? How did you end up in a relationship with a man if you don't trust men? So you're already in this relationship, and now you're reasoning that you need to break his heart, probably break your own heart, and put yourself into a situation where, for all you know, you could actually get a worse person. Based on what exactly? What did he do? So far, she's provided nothing. Even up until this moment, she's provided nothing. And I wrote this whole response back to her. And I used the word moronic. This is certainly not intelligent. It's not something we're thinking out. This is something we're doing based on feelings. She doesn't know how to keep herself safe. And so she reasons on generalization, which is cognitive distortion. Oh, I can't trust men. My boyfriend's a man, so I just need to break up with him and then maybe I won't get hurt. If he hasn't hurt you, then you're not breaking up with him based on the pattern of his behavior. You're breaking up with him based on someone else's behavior. Imagine basing the way that you act in this relationship based on your relationship with someone else. I'm going to punish you for the actions of another person. That's not intelligent. That's not thought out. It's not wisdom. It's not consciously reasoned. It's just living in safety mode. Safety mode can actually sabotage you. So, what can actually happen to a person like her? Imagine if this guy were actually a good guy. She could actually end up sabotaging her relationship with a good guy. And then what? Who knows what she gets next? She's going right back out into the lottery. And chances are the majority of the people are not a good fit for you out in the lottery. You got to sift through lots and lots of people to find a good fit. If she doesn't have a lid, all the other people who responded to her feeding in to her delusion with the yeah, he probably is a narcissist. Look, it's a normal way a person would probably respond if you say, hey, I'm breaking up with you even though you never did anything wrong because I just don't trust anyone of your gender all of a sudden. It's normal that they might say, well, I'm different. And by the way, doesn't sound like a good idea, and you could go out and get yourself hurt. That's normal that they might respond that way, especially if he cares about you. So the key, by the way, of trying to keep yourself safe in a relationship is not to try to identify the red flags of the narcissist based on what they say and how they act. It's by making sure that you set up your boundaries and your standards and you're highly assertive so that when they actually cross a boundary or standard, bam, you can nail them on it, assert yourself, or enforce your boundary, which means that you walk away. Then you have a good reason for ending your relationship. That's how you keep yourself actually safe. So a wise person understands there's risk inherent in everything. There's risk in a relationship, starting a business, speaking my truth, doing things that I've never done before. It doesn't mean I shouldn't do it. There's risk in everything. It doesn't mean I shouldn't do it. So how do we decide what we should do or what we will do? We're basing that decision on the calculations of the risk. In other words, what's the reward? Sometimes it's worth it. Sometimes it's worth it to leave your house, risk getting hit by a car, and to go to a grocery store to get some food. It's worth the risk. Sometimes it's worth it to get in your car and drive to work to get a paycheck. Even though you could get in a car accident, it's worth the risk. Those are calculated risks. Sometimes it's worth it to love, to open yourself up to being hurt by someone so that you can experience the connection that only comes through vulnerability. Sometimes it's worth it. It's worth the risk. We're not being reckless. We're being calculated. A calculated risk is grounded in wisdom, rooted in self-awareness, paired with support, and aligned with your purpose. You have to make sure the risk that's being taken is aligned with your purpose. Purpose can be a little bit overwhelming, so just to make it simple, your purpose is your goals that you set for yourself. Everything you do needs to align with the goals that you're setting for yourself. I repeat, everything needs to align with the goals that you're setting for yourself. When you're purpose driven, then you know not to quit. When you're emotion driven, then I don't know, maybe I should quit now because this guy, Brian Webb, just dribbled around me. Now I should quit. Because I was purpose driven, I understood. I still wanted to play the game. I still wanted to be good at the game. I still wanted to get better. I wanted to learn. I wanted to grow. So I kept playing the game. And I adopted that move. And I started dribbling around my opponents. And I never let someone use that exact same move on me again. I was always able to stop them because I learned, I adapted. This is what I need you to understand about your loss, about your trauma, about your failure. You're smarter now. Now would be the worst time to give up. After you've gone through something with the opposite gender, Lord knows I have too. You think I've never been hurt before, betrayed, lied to, backstabbed? I've been there, of course. But that's not the time to give up on relationships. That's the time to learn and move forward smarter than ever. Why would I just let the dumber version of myself go out and experience things? No, the smarter version, which is the current one, which has gone through the failure, the pain, and the heartbreak, he needs to go out and give it a try. Does that make sense? If your last business failed, it tanked, and now you owe a bunch of money, you are now the smarter version of you. You need to get back out there and you need to try again. I know it's going to be harder, but you got to do it because this is the version of you I would invest in, not the previous version who was bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, naive, thought that it was going to be easy. No, this one that knows what to avoid. You are the best version. Why would you stop now? Now you go. Now you move forward. You've just learned from one of the greatest teachers, experience. You've just learned. Now you know. Now you can help other people. You can become a guru in this now because you've been through it. Now you know. If we don't know, if we don't grow in experience or grow from our experiences, and you just go through your experiences and then you make yourself smaller as a result, then it wasn't worth it. Now you suffered for nothing. You suffered so that you can self impose more suffering. That's what you decided. Well, now I suffered, so I'm going to make myself really suffer now. No, this is your moment. Now that you've been through the worst thing that you could have possibly imagined that you could have possibly been through, now is your moment to go forward. You are practically invincible now because you don't have to fear now because you've already been through the worst. Imagine if 50 Cent, after getting shot, was like, well, I should stop with the rap career and get in something else. No, you don't give up. It's the adversity that you went through that gives you the credibility that makes all of us respect you and like you and listen to you. The adversity is not to your detriment. Nobody wants to go through it, but once you made it through, if you survived, that's why we call you a survivor. And now we're more interested in seeing what you're going to do. It's always more interesting when a survivor does it. It's always more interesting. So go forward and succeed. We need people who are survivors of trauma in positions of leadership, people who are full of empathy and love and understanding of what it's like to suffer and to be oppressed. We need you in positions of leadership. Don't sit back and just let all the narcissists take over. You know what it's like. We want to see you step up and start that book club, start that YouTube channel, start writing your novel, your memoir, whatever it is. Get on top of your purpose. Every single day, do something toward your purpose. Every single day, 7 days a week, just one small step toward your purpose. One thing. Look it up online, buy something off of Amazon, read an article, watch a video, something that works towards your purpose every day. When you take smart risks, you stop living in fear, you start living in intention. Does that make sense? We find our balance by checking our core motivation. Am I doing this to avoid pain or am I doing this to pursue growth? We want to be success driven, not fear driven. Stop trying to avoid pain as being your one motivation in life. Your one relationship technique is avoid pain. No, that doesn't work. Expose yourself to the potential strategically. Make calculated risks. Start small with manageable risks. Speak up once a day. Set a boundary with people. Try one new thing, even if it's scary. But you need to stay on your mission, your goal, and make sure everything you do is aligned with your purpose. And please redefine the way that you view failure. Every time you take a risk and it doesn't go how you hoped, it's still progress. When the guy dribbled around me like that, I learned a skill that I still to this day use the same skill when I play soccer, and I still remember where I learned the skill from. I grew instead of withdrew. You're learning. You're alive. It's a part of life to experience setbacks and failures. So let's stop living to avoid pain and let's start living to achieve our purpose. Let's take safety mode. Let's throw it in the trash. Let's get into a nice, balanced, calculated risk mode. That's right. We're going to take calculated risks. We're going to move forward, driven by purpose, by success, and by love.